He's a demonstrated history of working in the management consulting industry. He's skilled in financial accounting and reporting, including IFRS and UGSAAP, and is currently working with KPMG India as an associate director. I welcome you, Varun, and all the participants present here to the session on behalf of Masters Union.
Thank you so much, Aditi, for the introduction. So good evening, everyone, and my name is Varun Gupta, and we welcome you for this session, and thank you for taking out time for joining this call. And we really hope that you will make most out of today's session. And apart from that, we also look forward to seeing each one of you at the Applied Finance course, where we at KPMG, along with Masters Union, as their academic partners, are really committed to provide you with some of the practical insights, related to finance based on our experiences and our client dealings over the years. We really, strongly believe that this will prepare you to handle the challenges and situations in a better way when you start your professional journeys, maybe, after a few years from now. So with that, I'll just, I think I'll just skip my introduction. I think Aditi has already done that part. So I would just add that, I expertise into financial reporting solutions and technical accounting advisory. That's what I do for a living. And I particularly, I expertise into some of the complex accounting, some of the complex transactions when it comes to accounting, particularly related to business combinations and share-based payments. And now I've been, associated with KPMG for more than 8 years now. So I think without further ado, let's start with today's topic. And, before we go into, what storytelling in finance means, I really think that it's important to understand, what storytelling is. Like, if just remove the finance part from it, I think before that, it's really important that we understand, what is the power of storytelling and how it can really impact, us and the people around us. And, believe me that it's not a new concept. So storytelling has been a, very basic form of communication. And I would say that it was being used from generations and generations. So it's nothing new. And if you ask me, everyone is a storyteller from birth. So, it's just that how we, use some of the techniques and tools which are available and how we can master this art and then, use it for our own success. So, I think in today's world, storytelling is really important and the future is really bright for, those who know how to turn data and, data and information into stories, and then those stories into action. So, I think, and also, I personally believe that, this form of storytelling and communication, this has, some direct or indirect impact at some point of time in our professional lives. So basically, how we communicate, how we, communicate with peers, with, our seniors or our, during our professional careers, it does impact your, professional lives in some way or other. So I think just feel free to, unmute yourself in between or just type in the chat box if you have any thoughts or questions, as we progress. So I think we would be, really happy to answer your questions as we go ahead. And let me start with this interesting, story. So I think there was this journalist, Rob Walker. So, he was very curious to find out what storytelling, can do. So what he did, in 2009, he decided to do this, amazing experiment. So he went to eBay and then he bought, unique 200 products. And, the average price of these 200 products was $1 each. So, he made the total purchases of just $200. And what he did after that was he reached out to some of his friends, some authors, etc. And he made sure that there is a very, very compelling story for each of the products. So, he spent few months in this particular activity and, finalizing those stories. And then, after a few months, he again listed those 200 products for sale on eBay. And guess what? He made $8,000 out of it. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is just a slight 4,000% increase. Not much. This is the impact what story can do. So, we all get tricked by these stories, and take movies for instance. So, we all are when we see a movie like Bond movie, etc. So we are just glued to our seats, and we just into the movie, right? And it's because of the suspense and the how the story is brought to us. So although we know that these movies are very, very unrealistic, but we actually get emotionally invested to these movies. And if you ask me why does this happen, so there's a scientific reason behind it as well. So that it all depends on hormones, etc. So a good story can release a lot of hormones like dopamine, oxytocin, all those things which actually makes you connected to the story, makes you your memory, etc., and you just invested emotionally. So versus if it's not a good movie, so you will feel irritated, you'll be critic about it, and you really don't want to spend that time, right? So that's what the difference between a good story and a bad story is. So a good story will definitely release those hormones and into our body, which will make us to focus more, give more of our attention, and it will give us that motivation. So take Apple for example. So I'm sure that most of you would have watched Apple's launch events, right? So there's this fantastic and very famous event which happened in 2007. That was the first launch of iPhone by Steve Jobs. And I don't know whether you've seen it or not, but guys, if you have not seen that, just go back and go to the YouTube and find out that particular launch of iPhone in 2007 by Steve Jobs. And so these guys have been doing it over the years, and honestly, they're not selling the product, they are selling the stories. If you look at the Apple's launch every year, people are people look forward to those events. I don't think apart from Apple, like all other brands have a that kind of impact in the market as Apple. Of course, their presentations, etc., would have got flashier by the years, but their story is exactly the same. So they make you believe of their product. So that's what the story is. So I think with that, Aditi, I would request you to put on our presentation for today. I think somebody has said story influence people, customers, right? Yeah, that's exactly right, Jaya. So you would need to tell stories, etc., to a lot of people, your customers, your peers, lenders, etc. So we'll talk about all those things, when we proceed, to next slides. So what we are covering for today is, why storytelling is important. I've already covered, some part of it, try to cover that by now. And then we'll also speak about, who are like, if we come to a financial part of it. So who are the various users of your financial stories, and, who are the real stakeholders who are looking into those data and, your financial statements and numbers, etc. And what stories do your financial statements reveal? So we'll also speak about that. And then, what are the examples where, you being as a finance professional would be required to tell these stories? So, we will talk about few areas where, any finance professional is required to do this. And I think we'll close with one slide, which I think is a very, very powerful slide, and which talks about a 5-step guide to how we can do a very, very effective storytelling. So again, why storytelling is important, as I said, it engages the audience. So it actually, it creates an interest, and it draws your attention, and there is a curiosity to know that what's going to happen next. It also makes emotional connect with the audience. Whenever somebody is telling you a story, I think subconsciously, we are trying to connect it with our own story. So that therefore, we get emotionally invested to these. And then the third point, which you see on the slide here, what story can do, they can actually simplify the complex information and present that complex information into simplified graphs, etc., numbers, etc., which are easy to understand and which are relatable for your audience. And I think the last point, on the slide, I think you all will, agree with me on this. I think in today's world, the attention span has really reduced, and it's because of the technology. Of course, if you go back, 10, 15, 20 years back, there were no Instagram, all those, social media, etc. So, because of these things, the attention span of people have really reduced. So, if it's not a good story, no one is going to, listen. And again, as I said in the beginning, it's going to have those, bad hormones, which will make you feel even more irritated, rather than, being attached to the story. So, what we suggest is you should really pass on the important message in first 15, 20 minutes of any presentation and engage and, pass on the key message, right up front. So that's how, a good story is run. I think this slide only talks about three different types of learners. So there are people who learn by visual, when they see things, and there are people who learn by listening. So these are called visual and auditory listeners. But there's this third category of people who are called kinesthetic learners who learn by application. So storytelling is obviously important. It's easier for people who fall in first two categories, but a good story that also works on somebody who learns by application, because they will then relate to that and they'll draw those analogies based on their own experiences. So again, the people who learn by application, they also relate it to their own experiences, and they it also helps them. So I think with that, on next slide you will see some of the stakeholders who constantly look out after information in your financial statements, and they are the biggest critic of what story is your financial statement or your financials are telling, or your annual reports are telling. So take investors for example. Believe me, if there's a new investor coming in, they will do all the due diligence, and they will make sure that they go into very the details, and they will probably open all the books of accounts, all those things. So they are really interested in the information that the financial statements are actually telling, and how you spend your money, where you spending that money, how you performing. Are you performing well enough as compared to your competitors? So all those questions I think any investor would have before they actually invest in a company. So I think investors is a easy pick there. Take lenders for example. So if you go to the market and you want some money, you want a loan. So I think as part of any loan application, I think financial statements, annual report, all these things play a major role. They will make, I think, to be honest, they will be the most what I don't know what should I say, but I think out of all the documents of your loan application, the financial statements would be the heaviest one. And all these underwriters, all those lenders, they will really go into all those details, about your credit history, how have you been paying, all your creditors, all your interest payments on time or not. So if there is any red alert on your financial statement, I'm really afraid that they will lend you the money, or at least at at the terms which you are looking at. So I think that's very important there. And then what do we have on the slide? I think retail investors, market analysts. So of course, market analysts, or equity researchers. So these are again nothing but the investors only. The people who are writing reports about your company and how you are doing. So they all look at your numbers, your cash flows, how well you manage your working capital, all those things. And again, there are peers also who look at your stories, at your numbers, etc., to see that how they are doing, as compared to your company. So I think government bodies, regulatory bodies, again, they always look at some data or other, whether you're making the statutory dues payments on time or not, whether you're doing all the compliances or not on time. So I think almost, these are the main people who would be interested in your stories, which you tell in form of, your annual reports or management discussion and analysis, or, there are boards reports which are written by the directors. So I think someone is saying how financial stories influence, kinesthetic learners. So, Jaya, again, as I said, what these good stories do, they make you think about, they actually connect with you. When someone connects and, they get emotionally attached, so they actually draw the analogy and they actually try to connect that with their own experiences. And when someone does that, it's kind of, the application, right? So that's how, it helps that third kind of learners. Does that answer your question, Jaya? Once more. Okay. So what I'm trying to say here is, when you present, instead of just giving out the numbers, or, just presenting, XYZ numbers on spreadsheets, on PowerPoint, when you actually present them in way of a story, and we'll come to, how you do that in finance, right? So you obviously define a problem, then you tell how you are different and all those things. And once you do that, someone else would relate to that. And when they relate and when they get connected to that story, they, draw analogies, and then they, relate it to their own experiences. So that's how, they are also applying something in their minds. That's what we mean by application. So I hope, that is clear, by now. Great. So again, as I said, your financial statements and your annual reports, there are a lot of things, which different stakeholders are trying to, find out from them. So, what we thought, we've just tried to put, few indicative stories which any financial statements reveal. So again, coming back to this slide, what we've done is, we've tried to capture a few areas which, different stakeholders, when it comes to finance, what people are actually looking, So, take, the first bullet, for example, how well you budget your cash flows. So again, anyone who's lending money to you, or the analysts or the investors, they would really be interested how you manage your cash position, right? So do you keep it consistent, or, you just fluctuate, whenever there's a requirement, you just lean on financing options. So, how smoother or how less volatile your cash flows are. If your cash flows are very volatile, it certainly, shows something is, fishy there, or, there could be reasons for that. So, and it also shows, how you, actually manage your credit relationships with, different parties, like, bankers or creditors, etc. Other thing which any cash flow or a financial statement will tell is, how you manage your working capital, right? So are you keeping too much of working capital? So, of course, if you're doing that, it's not good for business, right? Then you're not earning right rate of return. And, on the other hand, if you are keeping it too low, there could be, risks of you running out on, working capital, right? And, less of reserves. So I think there has to be a balance to it. And then, I think it also tells how you are doing as compared to your peers. So, where you actually fall as compared to your peers in the industry. So, anyone can compare. So all these analysts and, research analysts, when they attend a lot of investor presentations and calls, so they are not looking only at your data, right? So they are looking at information of, I should say, a lot of other companies, especially your peers, and they would definitely, compare those, and they would question the company, the management, of those reasons. So they would really be interested in, are you really growing at the same rate as, your peer is growing, or, the margin rates, or let's say the gross profit, the net profit percentage, etc. Is it the same? If there's a difference, then what's the reason for that? So, all these things, all these, analysts or investors or all these people are constantly doing this. So, this is nothing new. This has been there. So, this is the emphasis, I think, what storytelling can do in finance. So it's not only about the numbers, it's about what story, or what trend you are trying to show by your annual report or by your director's report, all those reports which you publish as part of the annual report. And then also, again, if you go to your lenders, so they will obviously look out for whether your capital the requirement or the loan request which you are raising, is it realistic? So whether you have adequate cash flows, adequate projections to really pay off the EMIs and the interest in future, or you were already too debt heavy that you would not be able to pay off those payments in future. So I think with that, I think the last point, again, the last point is whether you're making the money you should be or not. So that point is again related to, whether you have adequate profit percentage, the net margin percentage, etc. or not. If let's say your cost of operations, or rather I think I should say cost of goods, right? COGS, cost of goods is increasing. So are you increasing the sale price also of your goods in the same rate or not? Or that shows that you're earning the right amount of money. Or are you pricing your products at a similar margin as your peers are doing? So are you doing that or not? So all these analysis is done by the management internally, by external stakeholders and other people. So I think before I move to the next slide, I like to take a brief pause here. If there are any questions, please feel free to type in the chat. So I'll just pause for 10-20 seconds. If there are any questions, I would be happy to take those before we proceed. So I think someone says, if I want to get placed on the same, how can I get connected to my recruiter to show my skill on the same? So I assume that your question is around the skill for storytelling. Is that right? And if that is the case, believe me, all the interviewers, they are not only looking for your technical skills, but they are also looking on the way how you communicate and how you present. Do you actually think before you speak? Do you make a reasonable do you reasonably conclude an argument, or how do you really respond? And that actually shows your communication skills, and learn or do a good storytelling, right? How do pricing analysts work? So Lakshay, again, by pricing analyst, I think it's a tough one, but there are different types of analysts. I think pricing analysts are more relevant when someone is going public, and how do you actually price your stock, right? What should be the right price at which you should offer your securities in the market, right? So all those things, I mean, your solvency, your liquidity, your financial health of your company, all those things determine that. And honestly, not only financial things, there are a lot of other non-financial things, like what standards of corporate governance your company follow. So if you do all the compliances in a very good way, that shows the kind of trust which public can have, and that has a very, very good impact on pricing. And again, there are a lot of other things. I'm sure you guys would have heard about ESG, which is environment, social, and governance. So all these things play a very, very vital role in all those analysis, like pricing analysis, or other things apart from finance. Product service pricing, like how do I decide if the product has price X is the right market fit? Okay, great. So again, you look at your peers. I'm assuming that if you're not in a monopoly business, you would have your peers, and what in that industry, what is the average margin rates, all those things, and that also. And other thing which is also important here is, I think some people, when they want to enter into the market in initial years, they really do a price war, or they really slash the prices. So I think that's something also to consider, how mature your business is, how much market do you capture, all those things. So it's not a just one single thing. It's a mix of a lot of financial metrics, and other non-financial things also. What all financial companies should I go before applying for job in this recession of 2020, what would be your suggestion? So, Avinash, I would, restrain myself from answering that for now because I really don't know, what new news we hear every day. I think, there are layoffs happening everywhere. But, honestly, I believe that, India is a little bit away from, a lot of those things right now. I'm not saying it's not happening here. It's happening right in front of our eyes. But then, at least I see my job as secure in near future. So I'm sure that there are specific sessions on recruitments, etc., as part of this applied finance course, right, Aditi? I think we also recommend and suggest about recruitment plans and all those things as part of our journey.
Yes, the placement assistance team definitely helps around with that.
Correct. I've heard about pricing courses from BCG and Bain. How can I leverage from Masters Union? So Lakshya, again, I said in the beginning, this applied finance course, we are the academic partners with Masters Union, and we really, try to bring in real practical insights based on our experience. And, we have specialized teams of people who have, experience of as many as 30 years. We have a lot of people, as part of these courses, which bring all these challenges, and we try to make these sessions very very interactive and practical. So this could really help you when you step out for your journeys. So again, these are few areas where if you are entering into finance, and being a finance professional at some point of time in your careers, maybe not in the initial years, but once you spend few years with your organization, right? And I'm sure that most of you would have to deal with these things in your careers. You will have to definitely present a lot of business plans with forecasts to your investors. And in these presentations, when you do these presentations, that just imagine there's a startup, and you're a founder of that startup. So you're looking for money, let's say seed money, right? So you will have to definitely present your story to a lot of people before you actually get the money. So again, storytelling actually does play a very very important role there, because if someone is going to give or invest early in your business, so it depends how you take your business. And it's also said that people and investors actually invest in people before they actually invest in an idea. So that's what companies have to do. And again, it's not only about a startup or small company, but let's say if even a big company who's going for a IPO, or they're thinking to go public, so they will have to file a prospectus, and as part of that prospectus, they will have to kind of tell a equity story, or how they look at their business, what are their plans in future, what they have done in past, where do they see themselves, and their I think information about their competitors, how they are better placed, as compared to their competitors. So, all these things are part of some section which is called, management discussion and analysis. It's in short, it's called MDNA. MDNA, it's a industry term which we use. So that particular section is part of a any filing which is done either in India, or in US, or any regulatory, or any stock exchange. So you will have to present your equity story, and the founders, or the MD or the senior management actually spend a lot of time in writing these stories. And most of those information has to come out from finance people, because ultimately when you start writing those stories, there are a lot of numbers, or there are a lot of analysis which you have to give. So I've seen basis my experience, finance function plays a very very important role for this particular activity. So I think that was the point one. And then, again, coming to the second point on this slide, it says negotiating a merger or acquisition deal, right? So again, if you're going to, let's say, buy a new business, or you want to sell units or one of your line of business. So it all depends on, what story or, how you look at that business and what's the story behind that, right? So again, these are some of the areas, even when you are negotiating with your business partners or with your, creditor or debtor on terms and conditions. So it all depends on, how you've done, how you actually, worked in the past. And, again, so there are a lot of analysis, a lot of things done from, which again includes two things. There could be information which comes from, financial part of scheme, financial things, and there could be some information which is non-financial. And again, both these things, financial and non-financial, have to be stitched together in order to be in order to present a good story for any particular business. And again, I think last point on this slide, telling stories to your clients, it's really very, very important. It's more important in the context of, I would say, consultants. So, in today's world, if you ask me, a lot of accountants are, losing their jobs to good storytellers, because, ultimately what clients wants to hear is their stories. They don't want to look at the raw data, etc. They want to, hear about some, very, very good data insights. They don't want to, they're not interested in those old PowerPoint presentations or Excel spreadsheets. But I think what they are actually looking for is some good insights, which any consultant can tell them, basis which they can really, take some smart decisions, and probably, some exciting trends, which supports, decision making for them ultimately. Yeah, I think I've covered a few points from this slide already. So when it comes to, pitch decks to raise equity, so it's also called, road shows. So as part of any equity raising, or when you actually go for an IPO or listing, so you do a lot of investor presentations, road shows in the on stock exchanges, where a lot of investors, financial investors come, and they are actually looking at a lot of information. So if you just tell them about your existing numbers, balance sheet, P&L, I don't think that's going to help your investors. So they need to know about a lot of things, apart from those numbers, and how you present them. So this particular roadshow and all those things are generally run by founder or a MD along with CFO. So you believe me, any roadshow, I've seen people from finance background, they have to be part of these roadshows, and they are the people who can actually tell about financial projections and few things like this. I think someone says, are we going to learn how to create storytelling? This looks like why storytelling is important. Is this a pitch to sell some program? So Anil, this story, we have a very, very, I think, long session in the detailed curriculum where we teach this how to do a good storytelling. But today's agenda is primarily, help you understand why it is really important from a finance background. Someone says, is there any scope of quantitative finance yet in India? I didn't get that. Would you like to just elaborate on your question? Yeah, I think now what you see on the slide is, some extracts from one of the, investor presentation. And if you, if you just go on Google and, find out some investor presentations of big companies, so you will actually see that, apart from numbers, they are actually trying to, build a story. So, how it starts with a problem statement, the problem which that particular industry faces, right? And how your company is committed to solve that problem, and what are the plans to solve those problems. This is just for reference. I think again there are numbers, there are ways to present information. So again, I think what revenue share you have in a market, all those things. So I don't intend to cover much from this slide. This is just for some extracts from one of the investor presentations, so you guys can have a real feel how all these things actually work in a financial way of scheme. Again, the point we're trying to make here is the traditional way of reporting things. Traditionally how it was done, it is changing. And you will see a lot of annual reports where people are actually changing it. There are new reporting coming in. So for example, there is a concept of BRSR. So it's called a business sustainability and responsibility report, which is kind of mandatory from this year onwards for big listed clients. So these kind of things are making a big change on how things were presented earlier. So if you see annual reports of companies which were written, let's say 5 years back or 10 years back, and if you compare those annual reports with some of the companies from new age, you will really see the difference. You will see a lot of charts and graphs in some of the recent annual reports, and those kind of visualizations, etc., they actually remove some kind of, I would say, subjectivity which is involved. So they remove all those subjectivity which can be really risky sometimes. And these kind of data visualization techniques, they help reveal I should say patterns and trend analysis, all those things. And obviously visually when you see things, it has more power, or it's more empowering. It has an impact on your memory. It helps people to make better decisions and remember it for a longer duration of time. Yeah, again, these are few data visualization techniques, charts and plots. And again, I would like to talk about this slide, how to do a good storytelling. So someone said, are we going to learn how it is to be done? So the answer is, you are not going to learn in this 1 hour, but we will try to give you some tips, some quick tips of which you can take back and apply, not only in your professional lives but also in your other way of communication, be it with friends or etc. So again, storytelling is not only important for finance but every sphere of life, right? So but again, these are the what we thought are 5 critical points which are really very important. If you understand these points, so it will definitely help you with coming out with a good story. So the first one is, you should really understand your audience. So you can't pass on the same message to everyone. So it's not a single presentation will not work for everyone. Different stakeholders, they are looking for different messages. So for example, your investors, they are looking for something else versus your employees. If you're telling some, or if you're presenting to your employees, they want to listen maybe something else, right? They're not interested in some of the information which, let's say, your board of directors are interested, or your investors or lenders are interested. So ultimately, who your audience is, you have to understand that, and what story you want to tell to those people. So it starts with understanding your audience. And the second thing, after that, is the data. So gather anything relevant. So gather the data whenever you're presenting or whenever you're doing the analysis, etc. So a good data is a must. You will have to ensure that that data is accurate before you use it in your external communication or your presentations. You should make sure that all the raw data which is gathered or which you're using is really accurate. So the second bullet is gathering all the data. Then in any financial storytelling, KPI plays a very important role. KPI means key performance metrics. The third point on the slide, as you can see, identify key metrics. I generally call it as KPI, key performance metrics. So you will have to select basis your industry, basis your the kind of industry you operate. So for example, if you're a telecom industry, or if you're a telecom company, say, so there are different KPIs for a telecom, versus if you are into aviation, definitely it has a different set of KPIs based on which industry you operate in. You want to really focus on those KPIs or metrics which you want to pick, and then build a narrative and highlight some of those KPIs where your company is doing good. So that's called understanding your KPIs. And then the next step is I think someone has said aviation's different KPIs like, okay, so in aviation, there could be a lot of KPIs. For example, I think what's the average, revenue per ticket. So let's say they basis my limited experience of working with aviation companies. I think they very, very closely, monitor their revenue basis the segment. So for example, just to take a hypothetical example, if I talk about Delhi, Mumbai route, right? So this is called a segment for an aviation company. So they would monitor that KPI. So what's the average revenue per segment, right? For them, or other KPI could be what's the show no show, right? How many, let's say if 100 passengers are booking tickets, so how many actually show, I mean cancel those tickets, or how many of them don't turn up. So there are different KPIs every industry has. And there would be obviously some KPIs which are common and generic. So those are obviously the general KPIs, but every industry has certain set of specific and unique KPIs which are called industry specific metrics. So with that, I think moving to the next point, which is related to acing the analysis. So again, this point is really very, very important. Once you gather all the data, your audience, right? You've come out with all the KPIs. Then the important part is how you bring all of this together and present in a way that it adds value. And ultimately you should be mindful of the fact that your story, or your presentation should be based out of what the data tells, right? Instead of what you want it to say. So what your data is telling, you should actually present, or do the storytelling in that way, instead of being it vice versa. So I think that's very, very important. And then of course the last point is whenever you're doing these kind of storytelling, so you should also focus on the presentation, right? So again, as we said, those data visualization techniques, there are newer techniques available at in today's world. So all those kind of powerful charts or display tools, apart from spreadsheets, etc. So you should be mindful and spend some time on your presentation, the data visualization technique, so it's presented in a better way. And I think the last point is always be energetic and be passionate about what you do when it comes to work. So just be passionate and be energetic. If you are passionate about anything, so that's the way to kill it. And I think you would be good at any storytelling. So I think with that, I will take a pause here, and that brings me, to the end of the slide. I think with that, we would like to, open it for questions. So someone is asking, are KPIs only related to revenue-based metrics? No, it's not true. Again, KPIs are bifurcated into two things, which are called financial KPIs and non-financial KPIs. So anything which is driven from finance, your financial statements, your balance sheet, your P&L, those are called financial KPIs. And anything which is, coming from non-financial things, those are called non-financial KPIs. So for example, for any e-commerce company, their number of customers, or their that is a very, very major KPI which they are which they boast of. So for example, Netflix, right? The number of subscribers they have, that would be a non-financial KPI for them. Aditi, would you like to answer this new question which is there, or should I take it? Someone is saying they are third year BTech dropout. Can they go ahead in finance career?
Yeah, sure. So as long as you plan to like continue your graduation, because this is a particularly certification program, anyway, to land a job, you'll need a graduation or a bachelor's degree. So if you plan to do your graduation simultaneously, you can definitely avail for the program to get into finance.
And you are never late for learning, right? You can always learn new things at any age, honestly, right?
Exactly.
Obviously, it's easier to say than getting it done, but yeah, that's what people say, I guess.
For the fees related queries, what I can do is, I do not remember it like exactly, but I can put the link to the particular course in the chat box, where all the information related to the fees, the curriculum of the particular course, and the mentors and everything is stated there. So you can definitely go through it in detail to make a decision. around your
So you're going to
program.
give them a link here so they can go to that link, right, Aditi?
Yes, it will have
Okay,
the fees listed as well.
great. So can a working employee do this program? To my mind, I think yes, anyone can do this course. So there are no restrictions from our side, and I'm sure your employer would not be having any issues with you if you want to learn new things. So I think that's workable.
This particular course is actually designed as per the needs of a working individual. So since we have our classes on the weekends, that is on Saturday and Sunday, so that anybody who's a working professional can benefit from the course. So yes, and there is no age criteria. So I think somebody asked around it. There's no age criteria around the admissions.
I think someone is checking for the timings, Aditi. Probably you would have to answer that for me about the timings.
So it is usually 10 to 1 on Saturdays and Sundays both. So 10 to 1 on Saturdays and Sundays both. And somebody was also asking about the placements. So we do provide placement assistance. So we like have a wonderful placement team in place. Like they have great connects, and you must have already read about the Masters Union flagship program placements, which is like the average CTC has been 29 lakhs last year. So that is about the MBA program that we have. But even for the applied finance, we have like a good placement team in place, and we do assist around placements.
So guys, it's also happening. It's not something new which we are doing. It's already happening in parallel. There are a lot of batches, there are a lot of courses which are being run as we speak. So I think, and we have had a successful placements thus far.
What is the duration for the program? The program duration is 12 months. So particularly for applied finance course, it's 6 months of theoretical classes, which will be online definitely, and the 6 months of virtual internship with KPMG. So which totals as 12 months for the entire program to avail your certification. And this program is not offline, Lakshya. So this is an online program, but we often invite our students to the Masters Union campus, which is at Gurgaon, to provide them like some networking opportunities, or have a meet and greet in person. So we often do that. So it's a hybrid course, so to say.
So there are people, bought in from different, service lines based on, what we are trying to teach. There are people from HR background, from finance background, there is a specific team called FP&A, Financial Planning and Analysis. So, we bring out those experts basis the course curriculum. So
I think there are a couple of more questions which I can answer here. Will we get placed with KPMG after the internship? So KPMG actually does absorb a lot of learners from the cohort itself while they're teaching. And it has recently happened with one of the cohorts as well. I think 7 to 8 learners are recently placed with KPMG India. But it is not guaranteed, of course. It is subjective to your performance in the course and the interviews you give there. So I hope that answers that. And someone else is asking, can we do the internship along with the learning? No. So it's like first 6 months of learning, which is theoretical learning, and the other last 6 months are spent into the internship. So they cannot go simultaneously. So the package for applied finance students is pretty subjective, and it is dependent upon what CTC you have currently, or even if you're a fresher, it is dependent upon your background of education and how you like face the interview, and how you perform in the interviews. So there's no upper cap or a lower cap to it. I do not have any numbers to state here. And yes, it is a live project based internship. So actually you get projects and get mentorship through KPMG. And it is an unpaid internship. It is a virtual unpaid internship for 4 to 6 months, I guess. The internship is not paid. It's not paid. Jaya, so there's no eligibility as long as you are enrolled in the course, which is for applied finance. You do make yourself towards the internship. So you are eligible for the internship if you are enrolled in the course. But of course, like no attendance, no assignments, then probably you won't be getting the internship. So it's that little criteria we have there. But more or less 100% people have the like get their internships with KPMG. No eligibility as such. As long as you're eligible for the course, you're also eligible for the internship. It's just that you'll have to make those efforts towards learning finance in the 6 months course, which KPMG teaches you theoretically. So of course, the CTC would be more than the fees of the program. I definitely hope so, but there's no particular number I can quote here. So the internship is a part of the course. It happens like 6 months of your theoretical classes with KPMG, and then post that you start off with your internship. So they do not happen simultaneously. I think if Varun, you can answer this something which is specific to finance. So it's 6 years BTech degree worth going into finance field. I didn't.
Yeah, I think Lakshay, what I think again, Aditi, I would like to not answer these specific questions on this call. It's always better to, I think
Year after
if
my
we can
third year in
arrange a
financial.
one-to-one. I was just suggesting that, if we can have a one-to-one counseling session with this gentleman, if you could just note that, I think that would be really helpful. We should really probably, ask somebody from our team or your team to do a better counseling. Even if he's not joining this course, I'm assuming if he is, definitely we are going to counsel him for upcoming few months. But let's do that, I think, offline. I think it's really better, because I don't want to answer if we are doing it specifically, let's do it in a proper way.
So Lakshay, I think you can mail us to appliedfinance@mastersunion.org, and then probably we'll see how we can counsel you
We can
around that.
arrange a session with some of the counseling experts. I think that's the best way to do it. Yeah.
Sure. So the email to go by would be appliedfinance@mastersunion.org. Evaluation, yes, we do take exams. Like we do plan to have exams and some sort of evaluation, but that is not something which limits you to not pursue the next semester, or something which happens in our schools and colleges. So there's no pass fail system, but yeah, evaluation is definitely there, and you do get some sort of feedback and areas of improvements which is beneficial for yourself. No, internship is not full time. So even if you are working or doing some full time role, you're involved in a full time role, you can still do the internship, because the internship happens like it is usually basically you won't be overloaded with work. It would be the amount of work that suits your weekend time schedule. So you'll be able to spend your weekends on the internship and simultaneously manage your full time role as well. Yes, yes. I think Jaya Lakshmi, you can definitely enroll for this particular certification along with your post graduation. This would make an excellent combination in terms of you're also, you're simultaneously doing your studies, and you'll get enough opportunities as well going forward with the placements team. So that combination would be perfect to go by. So I am not sure if contact number is something which I'll be able to provide, but the email ID, the functional email ID which we use, I can share that with you.
I think someone is also asking for the LinkedIn's profile. I think you can just search on LinkedIn by my name, Varun Gupta, KPMG. I think you would find not. I'm sure Varun Gupta is a very common name. Probably you would find a lot of Varun Guptas. But honestly, you can just filter out. You will get me easily there. So I'm associate director. You can just look out for the designation. It's associate director with KPMG.
So we can close the session on this positive note. I think we have answered all the queries here. Thank you so much, Varun, for addressing the session. And I think the storytelling part really impressed all of us here from you. Thank you so much for the session. Thank you
Thank you,
everyone
everyone.
for
Thank
attending.
you, Aditi. Thank you so much.